Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Board of Education meeting. I'd like to welcome you all and just call the meeting to order at 6:05 p.m. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll take a roll call, please.
Mrs. Giller?
Here.
Mr. Pascal?
I'll be here momentarily.
Mr. Jackson?
Here.
Mrs. Dion?
Here.
Mrs. Carey? Here. Mr. Annaly?
Excused.
Mr. Nolan?
Here. And I will turn this over to Ms. Benioff.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. First, I want to point out the pictures. Cohoes Elementary Schools celebrated National Career Week last week by hosting virtual presentations from professionals in a wide variety of areas. And the opportunity was directed in partnership with Junior Achievement of Northeastern New York. So the first picture, Mrs. Smith's second grade classroom at the Skype, visits virtually with an author, Will Hildebrand. In the middle, Harmony Hill fourth graders learned about web design with a representative from Troy Web Consulting. And then Abram Lansing kindergartners met with Keith Hancock, owner of Forever Friends Doggy Daycare. Keith took them on a virtual tour of the facility and introduced them to some furry friends. So we also had virtual visits from members of the Cohoes Police and Fire Department and artists and several representatives of STEM-related jobs, and students did a number of activities leading up to this. So it was a success virtually, and we look forward to the day when we can bring people in person to do these. Before we start our budget presentation, I just wanted to provide you with a brief update because I know there was some conversation last week. We began discussing a potential move to explore live stream meetings while having some in-person attendance. So in researching, we learned that we can limit the number of attendees as long as we continue providing the live stream option. And we've begun exploring some rooms that could accommodate us. So if the room is too big or too cavernous, then we have to worry about the sound while streaming and potentially needing additional microphones. So the high school cafeteria could be a possibility. We're going to check it out in the evening to see if we hear white noise from the refrigeration system. There is a larger room at the middle school that's a strong possibility too. We'd like something with an entrance close by so that people can park and go to the meeting. So that room has it's about 1,500 square feet, which is maybe one more of this room, and also it has a junior handler. So we're looking at all potential possibilities. We'll provide you an update in the near future, but we have started the process, and then I know that there'll be discussion about what we should do, but we are looking into.
Thank you.
And at this time, we're going to have our budget presentations, and our first presentation, as always, submissions for public comment can be emailed to boecomment@cohoes.org. Our first presenter is going to be Mr. Dan Martinelli, and he is going to start by talking about the needs assessment and some of the accomplishments this year. Mr. Martinelli?
Can everybody hear me? Good evening, and I would like to thank our Board of Education for the opportunity to present the middle school's need assessment tonight.
Hold on, Dan, you're talking, but we can't quite hear you yet. I think there might be something on our end. I'm not sure.
You look good. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Just give me 1 sec.
I can hear you, Mr. Martinelli.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me now?
There we go.
All right. So we're good?
Yep, we're good.
All right. So good evening, and I would like to thank our Board of Education for the opportunity to present our school's needs assessment tonight. I would also like to thank Ms. O'Shea and Mrs. Mackey for their leadership in this process. I do feel like the middle school is supported, particularly in these turbulent times. So I'm quite thankful for that. For my parents and staff and community members, I thank you for your support, patience, and flexibility. And all of those are focused on the goal of keeping our kids in school, be it virtual or hybrid. Now, this upcoming budget for us is an integral part of finding the pathway, and it's about finding the pathway to the road of recovery, because we're a distance away from that. And I know we all hope that the governor, the New York State legislature, the federal government will work to fund schools appropriately. That said, we can't possibly build a $44 million budget based on what we hope we may get. We have to maximize every dollar, and those dollars will be focused on getting our kids back. And this is very important. The aspirational phrase that I use with my staff, the aspirational phrase I say to you tonight is back and flourishing. Our kids need to flourish again. My own personal kids need to flourish again, and that is the goal. Our first 4 slides begin with where it should, some accomplishments, and these speak to the strengths of my staff and the resilience of Cohoes kids. Now, you see dynamic scheduling and logistics. I can't tell you how difficult it was to make essentially 4.5 schedules, Blue Day, Gold Day, hybrid, virtual, an entry plan for multiple entries and exits for all 3 grade levels, entrance routines, hand hygiene, hallway transition plans, safe classroom configurations, only 14 kids in a class, except for 3, I have 3 15s, and safe food delivery. You know, even the quarantine process, New York State was supposed to handle the quarantine process for us, but we had to take that over because they were overrun, and that's what keeps our families safe. So the staff, and I mean the entire staff, teachers, counselors, secretaries, custodians, everybody had to adapt, and we had to adapt at 100 miles an hour, and we had to develop new methods to reach our kids. We had to learn how to teach virtually, which is very difficult. And I mean, trying to teach the Pythagorean theorem over the internet, it's tough. I mean, that's the reality of it. But we have fully integrated. We've had some great successes of fully integrating technology into all our lessons and our communications with parents, our communications with teachers. Parent choice at the middle school has been our goal, meaning if a parent out there wanted to bring their child back, which I absolutely embrace, or even if they wanted to move to the virtual model, which I respect, we did that. We've done that consistently within a couple days. I had a 6th grader start today. This kiddo, it was his first day in the middle school. I mean, you know, he's been at Cohoes all his life, but today was the first day he stepped in middle school. We had to give him a tour, but I was glad to have him. So we've been super adaptable. And intensive case management, and what that means is, I mean, we've had to reach out to families and students like never before, to parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, whoever will answer the phone, answer our parent square text, answer our Schoology, answer our email, and even answer an online call. We do home visits, we knock on doors, we deliver food, we get kids glasses. We have a backpack program, we deliver honor roll, medallions, Chromebooks, student materials, markers, you name it. We've had to adapt and get all that people need. And we're more than happy to do it. I could not be happier with my staff, and really I'm thankful. Could we please go to the next slide? 2 of 4. So, you know, we have to talk about the challenges. And our collective challenges are many, and we've hit them head on. And I like to think it's because we're never afraid of a challenge, but I'll also tell you it was out of absolute necessity. And not only am I proud, I know I said that before, but I'm actually deeply thankful. And if you look at the slide, it says student acquisition of skills, and that's EduSpeak. We use a lot of that in schools. And what that really means is we need to get the math, science, ELA, social studies, facts, health, PE, world language. We need to get it writing. We need to get it all in those kids' heads. And we have to do it with direct instruction at best every other day with some supplemental materials on their independent day. And it's really hard, you know, and we know we need to grow kids. We know we need to get them to the mark. We know we need to have to work on their mental health and engaging in school. And it's been really difficult. In saying that, we've done so much. I've seen science teachers do hands-on lessons in front of the kids. Hopefully they have some materials at home. If not, we sent them. And it's really been beautiful. And even though, you know, again, we have some kids failing some classes, I'll also tell you that 188 kids, at the end of quarter two, run some sort of honor roll designation, whether it's honor roll, high honor roll, or super secret kung fu grip honor roll. That's not what it's called, but that's what I want to change its name to. So there are kids that are doing really, really well too. And, you know, I have to celebrate that. The technology hurdles, you live it every day. I almost could skip over this one. You know, the availability of devices for kids, the availability for high-speed internet outside the school, it's been pretty stable in the school. And the technology proficiency with kids and families and even teachers and principals, we've all had to learn at a rapid pace, and we have to try to make it interesting, and we have to try to make it work. And that's been, you know, a real challenge. And that's where I want to ask the board and ask our acting superintendent that I challenge you. Let's make technology and closing the digital gap an absolute priority for the district. And I think that's necessary. Although no one asked me, but I offered it anyway because I sort of have you all now. So I'm glad about that. The availability of resources, I could do slide after slide on that. I mean, it is hard. Mid-year cuts, it's reduced our effectiveness, and we've had lots of cuts here. I'm not going to dwell on that because everybody's had cuts. The universe has had cuts, and this has been really, really difficult. Again, we've adapted. That said, I praise my custodians for keeping us all safe. My building is sanitized and clean. My secretaries help us stay afloat, and the parents as well, and all the staff. Sylvie Joseph, our technology director, he diligently keeps us as current as our funding allows. And we're constantly working on ways to secure student and staff Chromebooks and additional technologies that we desperately need. The teachers and the kids have come super far. And again, we have to close that digital divide. So I'll leave that at that. If we can move to the third slide, please. Okay, if you're at home, maybe you could perk up. Just look at this one slide for me, because this one doesn't have as much on it, but it's super telling, okay? So our enrollment numbers for next year, we're really going to have 450 kids in this building. I haven't had 450 kids in this building since I was assistant principal 15 years ago. The cohorts, next year's sixth grade cohort is 157. This year's sixth grade is 151. It's a lot of kids. We are on the precipice of some really large class sizes. And that's just one of our realities. We'll deal with it. We'll make it work. We're going to have to be flexible, but just know that those are going up. Our total projections for students with disabilities is 78 students. That's 17%. That's high. It's a lot, and it requires the right resources in the right place at the right time to help all of those kiddos. And really, we embrace it. It's the right thing to do. If we can move to the last slide, please. Is there an award tonight who finishes earlier?
Yeah.
Yes. On it. Now, I myself, and in schools in general, education in general, we're never ones to shy away from an analogy. But I'm not going to use, the one about wing walking on a plane, and sort of fixing it, because that speaks to the impossibility of it all. And I absolutely don't believe in that. So maybe I'll use cars as an analogy. And what I'm gonna say to the board is, I'm not asking you, for a turbocharged engine or tinted windows like Mrs. Tarlow and Mr. K have on their cars, or a new Fender stereo. I'm really going to ask you. I need the wheels, and I need the doors, and I need the clutch because I'm addicted to driving a manual. My asks are for what we need. And again, I need to get us on that road. I needed to get us to that path to the road. And so I'm just briefly going to review some of the asks. So the 0.6 guidance counselor, that's a restoration. I mean, we've always had 2 guidance counselors here at the Cohoes Middle School, and boy, do we need them, whether it's mental health needs or working with outside agencies that provide services to kids, certainly scheduling, collaborative with teachers, reaching out to families. We have an open door here. Any parent, anytime, can ask us for a parent-teacher conference, and we schedule them. It's anytime during the year, and multiple. And so it's really important to have 2 guidance counselors, just like, I would say it's very important for the high school to have the return of their counselor too. That's your one freebie, Ms. Tarlow. That's the only one I'm giving you. The second one is a 1.0. That's a full-time reading teacher. And again, we did not hire. That was a no hire position during COVID. We've always had that, and it's a mandate. It's on students' IEPs, but we have to have it to follow the law. 85% of the kids in that class are students with disabilities, and we need to track their reading on their IEPs. The other 15% is because, boy, we have a whole bunch of kids here that need help in Tier 3 reading, and I desperately try to get them into that class. If we don't have that, then more kids are going to have to go to a reading section in 6th grade, or we're going to have another place for them to go. The next one is the CMS Sped Teacher Leader. Now, that's the only ask of something that we have not had before. But again, I'm going to say that that's an integral part of the CAR. There's more special ed teachers than any other teacher or category in our district, and they don't really have a teacher leader. And we need that layer. Now, I'm one about being efficient with layers, but I truly believe that we need that one to keep the focus on the kids, particularly when we have kids coming back to us that have not walked in the building in a year and a half. So I place a personal importance on that one. The 0.2 SPED teacher, and for those of you, when we talk about points, 0.2 means 1 class. Teachers typically teach 5 classes in Cohoes in the secondary level. And that's so we could have a special class math teacher in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We have a 0.2 SPED teacher in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade for ELA. We've always had it. It was the reason we didn't is we had a small lull, and I tried to save us some money, but 2 months later, all the kids came back. And so that's a necessity. And lastly, I like to think of this last one as a savings to the budget, because typically our special education behavior classroom, which has always had 1 teacher, 1 full-time teacher, 1 full-time TA, and a full-time aide. I think if we got real creative, I can do it with a 1.0 behavior TA, which we've had, and 0.2, 1 class of a behavior teacher to do a check and connect in the morning. That behavior TA will be on a radio. They will be scheduled into classes. No one will be lying in wait. That person will be very busy. And that way we can adhere to the behavior support services that are typically on kids' IEPs. And we have quite a few kids that need that. So I'll round it out here. I thank you for listening, and I thank you for just thinking about the things that we've asked for. And I'm certainly open to any questions that anyone has.
Dan, I know you know that the financial situation with the state and everywhere is not good. Is this at any kind of priority, or are all these at the same tier?
I would say, I mean, honestly, for me, they're all at the same tier. I actually, and as I mentioned, several of them are necessities in that if we don't have them, the kids won't have a place to go and a balanced schedule. You could say the CMS Sped teacher leader is one we've never had before, but if possible, I would really like to have that one.
Thank you, Mr. Martinelli. And next, Mrs. Tarlow, the principal of Cohoes High School.
Bravo, Mr. Martinelli. Well done, sir. I want to congratulate Mr. Martinelli on a wonderful presentation, but I want to also thank him and the entire middle school. I have 2 middle school age children at Cohoes, and they have just had an amazing experience at the middle school, and that's thanks to Mr. Martinelli and his team's help this year. So I want to thank him and his team first. I want to, echo his thanks to the Board of Education, to Ms. O'Shea, to Ms. Mackey. But I also want to reach out and extend my sincere thanks to our teachers that have been flexible and adaptable and have tried a variety of new things, all in the name of what's good for kids. To our parents who have been super flexible, who have been patient, who have stayed in good communication. And lastly, but probably most importantly, to the students who have handled this with such maturity. I am just so impressed every day by the way that they are going through this pandemic and coming to school and trying to the best of their ability, which might look different from household to household. But to thank all of those individuals, I'm very proud to see that on a daily basis. So I just wanted to start a little bit talking about, and I don't want to be redundant, so I can certainly elaborate, but there's a lot of crossover between the middle school needs and the high school needs. And Mr. Martinelli and I have prioritized, I think, working as a team and looking at secondary as a whole this year and how we can work in tandem to provide a good linear pathway for students. So, to his point, we've had scheduling challenges as well, but we've also had that even a step up in the sense that we have a variety of course offerings such as dual credit, college, AP, honors courses, elective courses, and then having to rotate on a day 1, day 2 schedule, which really threw everybody for a loop. And it's been confusing, but again, parents and students have been wonderful and been adaptable in doing that. We've had at the high school the most instances of having to maybe get some news in terms of exposures and close on the fly. And have to go remote and have to provide remote instruction and not know how many days we might be out. And again, students, families, teachers, everyone was very adaptable in that. Albany County Department of Health was sort of an adventure because they were doing great things and keeping people safe, but some of the guidelines would change from time to time. So we just tried to stay current, make sure we knew what the latest regulations and guidelines were, and stay in contact with them so that we could keep everyone safe and within the protocols and procedures that were current. This year, we've had to think about new ways to do just about everything. For example, things as simple as going to lunch and what that looks like and how kids are seated and where do they sit and how do they get food and how do we clean up. It seems, like it's lunch, what's the big deal? But it took a lot of thinking and a lot of strategizing. We used innovative ways to get kids places without waiting in lines. Things like QR codes in the hall to go to the library or to see a counselor. That seemed to work very well. We had to modify our entry into school, make sure people were safe and temperature checking and, saying good morning and, making sure kids still felt welcome in the building while also making them feel comfortable. Looking at the limited resources we have and thinking how we can be efficient and also try to meet students' needs. I feel like we've done the best we can with that. And I'm really proud of the faculty and staff for coming up with ideas to help me as a building leader establish new ways to try things. In terms of teamwork, our staff has gone above and beyond, our faculty, but we've done a lot of fun things with kids as much as we can, through Zooms for a lot of our virtual students. There are freshmen, there are transfer students that have never stepped foot in Cohoes High School. So trying to establish a relationship and a rapport through virtual learning has been challenging, but our teachers have done a lot. They've allowed students to join in after school Zooms for extra help. They've come up with really creative ways to teach, whether that's interactive whiteboards online for mathematics or sharing chats. We've done a lot of different things. We've also tried, you know, to Mr. Martinelli's point, to really stay in touch with families as needed on a day-to-day basis. So if a family reached out and said, you know, my child is struggling at home in the virtual model, we would come up with a very responsive, quick way to adapt that child's schedule and get them back to school so that we could help them. And vice versa, if they were going through health issues and they needed to go virtual, that we could adapt to that quickly. I want to thank our building custodian, who's just done a wonderful job keeping this very large building clean. And in the recent weeks by himself, and the office staff that, you know, just have been doing everything and offering good customer service while working really hard this year. I want to move on to the greatest challenges. We've had, you know, our share of challenges, like every school, like every municipality. But I think the one that I put on top that kind of stands out to me, that I think may even be amplified next year when we return, is social emotional health and wellness. And students that have historically just done really well in school, were always really involved, just sort of fell off the face of the map. And that was hard for a lot of us to try to see that happen, and try to think of ways to get them back engaged. So I feel like we've really tried to foster these key, you know, relationships, but it's been challenging when we don't see the kids and if we can't get them to participate. So I think there was a lot of stress. I think there was a lot of anxiety, both in students and in faculty and staff this year. But I think we're looking to get some supports back in place that would help, you know, these students when they return. We don't know what next year looks like, but we hope everybody will be back in person. But with that would come a lot of challenges in terms of mental health. So that's something we're thinking about. In terms of student engagement and skill regression, again, our students are only attending every other day in person or every other day virtual in a synchronous fashion. If they are in a day 1 or 2 class, the way the cadence of that works out is that it's really every 4th day. So, you know, they're just that you know, daily interaction with teachers and that practice, it's just not there like it would be in a previous year. So it's definitely been difficult. Parent Square has been, I think, a really good addition this year. I think it's helped parents feel like they could reach out pretty quickly. It's allowed us to communicate with them. And so we've tried that. We've tried databases. We've tried home visits, engaging community resources, having virtual parent meetings, you know, whatever we could do to try to help those families. Last on here, I have resources and limitations. And again, similar to the middle school, you know, we had personnel cuts midway through the year. I think the high school took a pretty big hit in terms of the cuts within the district, and it put a lot of strain on everyone. But it did affect building morale, and you know, not to be negative or not to dwell on that, but I think we're working hard to try to keep that morale up and keep people feeling good about coming here, knowing that they've all had to assume a lot more responsibility this year than they may have in previous years. We lost alternative programs. We lost after school supports. We lost a mentoring program. Our busing was cut. So again, not to dwell on things that didn't go right, but to just kind of showcase some of the resources that we maybe took for granted in the past, or we've just always had and got used to. And without them, seeing the reality of the impact of that was difficult. You know, we had, in terms of resources, you know, a lot of time was spent this year, I'm sure with all building leaders, on COVID, you know, on contact tracing and doing county work. So whether that was nights or weekends or whatever that took. But that, again, you know, there weren't a lot of resources, but everybody pitched in and did what they had to do to keep people safe. So I think that was really a great thing. What is unique to the high school that presents the biggest challenge, I think, is that we are the building that cannot push a student onto another grade or advance them with additional supports without the accrual of credit and without passing a course. So, you know, I do stress a little, I do fret a little about what next year will be like if we can't get kids to the finish line with a positive outcome. In the past, we've had a lot of interventions that we could try, and now with kids every other day and spacing, there are limitations to trying to get kids here more. So we are thinking about some ideas. We are talking about some ways to engage. We've started an Operation Graduation program. We're going to be doing electronic sign up for after school help and some other ideas that we can do to support students. Any questions on challenges or successes? Okay. Like the middle school, we're seeing a slight increase next year. We have a large population of students with disabilities, about 18%. And so in the next slide, when I talk a little bit about, what do we need, I think we have to be aware of not only the skills that I talked about and those deficiencies and the mental health challenges, but also just the students that have special needs and special supports that they need in place, and being cognizant of giving those students what they need. So I outline that a little bit more on the next slide, if you could advance. So I tried to break down our needs into 3 categories. Plus, I thought it looked nice to set it up like that. But so first and foremost, support. Again, I'm trying to think about, what really matters when, yes, everything we do here is important, but what really matters is your health, right? Your physical health, your mental and emotional health. And we've lost a lot of counseling supports this year. So I want to look at, and I know Dan Martinelli used the car analogy because he's a car person. But I'm sort of using the analogy of, I'm not asking for anything new, but I'm using the analogy of us being sort of in a cave, or we're underground right now. And I just want to get back up to street level. I want to get some resources in place that can get us back up to street level so we can get, hit the ground running again. Because right now we're so below and so deficient in resources that in order to anticipate the needs of next year and help those kids recover from what we've been through, I do think we're going to need our full-time counselor back. Currently, we have 2 full-time high school counselors and a part-time middle school counselor that's traveling, and they each share a caseload on average of 222 students. And that's 222 students, some of which are very much challenged and have risky, engagements outside of school that need a lot of attention and need a lot of support. And in addition to that counselor, we lost a full-time social worker that was provided to us through a partnership with BOCES, and that was our student assistance counselor. That counselor used to see a regular case load of 60 students. That caseload has now been given to our school psychologist and our social worker for special education. So collectively, they're seeing over 20% of the students pretty regularly, and then also handling walk-in cases, crisis cases. So it's been a lot of strain. If we could look at implementing a full-time school counselor back, it would reduce the counseling caseload by about 45 to 50 students. And so in my opinion, I think that would give a more quality of attention to the students at the high school, so they can career plan, they can look to college readiness, they can look to course selections, and they can spend a lot more time counseling students doing what they love doing than just kind of running and frantically trying to help that number of kids, that quantity of kids. It's a lot of students. I think we're going to have no choice but to implement some type of social emotional learning in class. We'll never have enough funding for the number of counselors and social workers that we need here to support our community of learners. So we want to talk next year about implementing that. Moving on from those supports, hoping that we can support those students so they can then focus on skills, which would be the next level. We lost our AIM Academy alternative program this year, and that was a tough blow to the high school. We have had great success in that program. We've had families that have told us, how meaningful that program has been to their family. They may have had multiple children that went through that program and helped them to our graduation. So to pull that out from students midway through the year was difficult. We lost our after-school assistance program. I would like to reinstate that. We had a full-time special education teacher that was moved to another building. We really need that support here. You saw our numbers for next year. They're very high. And I echo Dan's point to needing a special education teacher leader. They are the largest department in our building as well. And that has been a need for several years now. We are going to try piloting a freshman academy. We've done some freshman academy stuff in the past, but we have a committee right now that's working on formalizing that. We had sent a survey out to our faculty talking a little bit about what they would want in that program and what would be meaningful to students to help support them. It's a proactive approach versus a reactive approach, and we think it's important and in putting that kind of first and foremost when we do scheduling this year. In terms of success and really looking at the whole child, we had our Hope Mentoring program that was great, and it kept kids engaged. It gave them somebody to go to, and we lost that as well. Our clubs and activities that hook students, that give them something to do after school, that give them a community of friends within the school with similar interests. I would like to reinstate all of those next year. And then obviously continue with our higher level courses and challenging students in advanced placement and dual credit, while managing to offer some elective coursework that would really kind of hone in on student interest as well. So I think if we can, I know Mr. Nolan had asked Mr. Martinelli, what is most important? And I think it's hard for me to pull something out of there that's the most important, because again, I'm not looking at anticipated needs of anything new or really anything too innovative. I'm looking at getting back supports that we know worked for students and that we know helped the high school over the past 5 to 7 years on our journey to raising our graduation rate, lowering behavioral issues, and really getting students engaged in the high school experience. So I appreciate your time and certainly can answer any questions you might have.
I have a question. The implementing SEL into classrooms, what does that mean for you? Is that just a program change integrated into daily curriculum, into classrooms, or is it a support model that you're looking at something separate?
We don't have a particular model in place right now, and nor do we have a particular model for next year that we have selected. What I would like to do, though, is work with the hopefully reinstated school counselor and assistance counselor to look at what we can do with the counseling team and what we can push out to students that would work, whether it's, a curriculum or just a belief. Mr. Huno in the high school has done a lot with the Tiger Way. We're looking at incorporating the Tiger Way into our freshman academy. So maybe it's a belief, maybe it's a reinstatement of this acronym and what we believe in and how to support students. But in the freshman academy specifically, they want to do some work in planning across the board with our freshman students that gives them some emotional support and social skills for coming to the high school and knowing what that looks like.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mrs. Carla?
Thank you for jumping to my question already. I know, it's pretty obvious that the state and everyone is in a difficult situation for at least next year, the foreseeable future, most likely. And, I really appreciate the way this is all laid out very clearly, but it's going to be a challenge for us figuring out what we can do next year.
I understand.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Carlo. So between you rising to the street and then Mr. Martinelli driving his car, we'll be all set. So thank you both.
Thank you.
And now we have Mr. Huno, who is going to discuss athletics.
Good evening, everybody.
Can
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, thank you. So yeah, I just want to thank everybody for, inviting me tonight to talk about athletics and to go over our greatest accomplishments this year. Again, flexibility and adaptability, just getting our program started up at all has been great. in adapting to the myriad of health and safety protocols that's ongoing. We're learning more and more every day. The students are learning, the coaches are learning, I'm learning best practices on how to keep everyone safe and better ways of doing things, having everybody in the building or in a gym. And we've had to do that in a very short time. Flexibility for scheduling changes. We've had a lot of scheduling changes for quarantines of other teams or our own teams at times or certain individuals. So that's just having that flexibility has been pretty good. And then having winter sports running right now and fall 2 sports started this week as well. So we have 2 seasons running at the same time, which is can be very complicated. Thankfully, it's been pretty nice out this week. And then, just limited resources, both people and financial. And we've done a pretty good job of being able to provide our student athletes with sports, despite the limited resources. Great accomplishments again is teamwork. Teamwork, obviously, between the administration and everybody in that room, but also with our coaches, our parents, and our students, just collaborating to make sports happen. Coaches volunteering their time to coach our athletes. I just don't think I can thank them enough for what they're doing. Parents driving their students to games in this winter season where parents are not allowed in to watch the games. Some of them are sitting in the parking lot while their students are playing in a basketball game and are watching the game live streamed on their phone. And we just want to thank them for that commitment. And then just staff or parents who volunteer to do a scorebook, operate the game clock, or operate the shot clock. We've had volunteers to do those things, and it's really helpful, and we appreciate it. Another great accomplishment for the athletic program has been the Women of Will. The Women of Will is a partnership with BSN and Under Armour to empower women's high school sports, and we're really proud of that. We've only gotten into the program just a little bit because of COVID. The benefits of it are included. They gave us a really nice media background, tablecloth with the exclusive Women of Will logo and our Tigers logo. We just recently sent a picture into BSN and the program with a student athlete who was, the backdrop was right behind her, and it was published on their national social media page. Again, the use of the WOW logo. Our teams will receive $500 of Under Armour gear for taking part in the program. And once we get up and running, which will hopefully be next year, fully with the program, each of our women's teams will receive $500 towards anything that they want. Myself as the athletic director, for having all our women's teams involved, I get a one-time $1,000 to spend on team apparel, socks, anything that we need in the athletic program for those teams. And again, even if they didn't offer those things, just the mere fact of we're empowering women's high school sports is good enough for us. Another accomplishment has been the technology. We've added a Pixelot camera system to both our gym and our football soccer field. And that's probably an estimated value of over $10,000. And it was free to our district because our booster clubs paid for the installation, and a business, Saw Plumbing, donated some money, and the National Federation of High School Sports has offered those cameras with just the installation fee to live stream our games. The point of the whole system wasn't to do what we're doing right now, which is live streaming the games to families. We thought we would have people in the stands by then. This was a program we put together over the summer. But what it was really for was for coaches to get film of their games, for students to get film of their games, use it as a teaching way to teach our athletes, but also our athletes who go to college and want to play college sports. We need film on them to send the coaches. And this is all automated, and no one has to run it. The toughest thing for a coach is to find somebody to film a game. And if the person doesn't show up, you're running around and you're trying to find someone to film the game. This is all automated. we've had a few hiccups like with all technology. We've had some issues at times streaming, but it's getting better and better. And we're on, the phone probably every other day with the company, and things are working out much better. And there's other potential opportunities. There's an educational component to it, where if we had a club or a group of students who wanted to be involved in announcing or game production, there's a program for that. And also there's some fundraising opportunities for our booster clubs by advertising on our page. And when the game is running live, there's a few spots to advertise. So those are some of our greatest accomplishments so far this year. And again, probably the biggest one would just be getting sports up and running and seeing the smiles on the student athletes' faces. Greatest challenges has been communication with our athletes. With the every other day instructional model, we don't always see them and are able to get messages to them. We use our platforms, Schoology and Parent Square, but we don't always reach everyone. And in the short time that we've had to put sports together, I still have parents and students reaching out to me about fall 2 sports that started earlier this week, that somehow missed the communications. In normal years, our coaches are spending a lot of time in off-season workouts with our student athletes, or seeing them on a daily basis, and they're able to communicate with them much better. The all-important impact of a player-coach relationship had been lost for most of the year due to not having sports running in the COVID pandemic. We reached out to students as best we could. We had some Zoom meetings, but some of the kids were just so disappointed in their seasons not beginning that they kind of withdrew a little bit. And then just timely and effective communication with parents. Again, it gets better, when you have more time to plan for it. And, just again, trying to use Schoology and Parent Square to get information to our parents as best as possible. And trying to have some meetings, virtual meetings with our parents for preseason meetings is going to be really important. Budgetary is a great challenge. Trying to run a program on a budget freeze, it can be difficult, as it is with everything. Again, I can't thank our coaches and parent volunteers enough for doing stepping up and doing all they've done. And just staying on a purchasing cycle. I think that's probably the biggest part in athletics is uniforms and equipment. And to use a good example would be helmets. If you don't buy helmets for a couple of years, eventually there's a 10-year life on a helmet. So if you purchase a lot of helmets in one school year, 10 years from now, you're going to lose a ton of helmets, and then you're going to be purchasing a lot, and they can be quite expensive. So it's better to be on a cycle where you're buying, 5, 6, 7 per year. And then over time, when the life of the helmet is up, you're now just buying 5 or 6 or 7 to replace those ones from 10 years prior. And then another great challenge, and I know that Mr. Martinelli and Mrs. Tarlow have spoke about it, is just student athlete or student wellness. First of all, in athletics is physical wellness. A lot of our students, weren't working out as much, whether it be, our gym classes provide such exercise for our student athletes, and, not having that for some of them, or having a smaller version of phys ed class. Missing out on skill workouts, conditioning, and weight training. Those are all important factors in the wellness of our athletes. And then the mental wellness. For many athletes, sports are part of who they are, and they became disconnected during the COVID-19 period. So, it's a big part of them, and they had a hole, and we need to fill that hole with things for them to do. So those are some of the greatest challenges that we've faced. Athletics participation for fall sports. These are pre-COVID numbers. Obviously, our numbers would be totally different during COVID. Some sports weren't offered. Seasons are kind of been out of whack due to the way they've reinstated sports. So these are just some of our sports and the participant levels that we've had prior to COVID. And you can see fall, winter, and then spring. And then so far, we ran bowling in January, basically January into February. We had 15 students. We had 9 boys, 6 girls. So we had two full team for both boys and girls. We are currently finishing basketball for varsity boys and varsity girls. And we had competitive cheer. We did not end up doing any competitive cheer competitions. There wasn't a lot of students involved in that program, and so what we've done is basically given them workouts, and we have a handful of kids who are coming and working out and working on skills for cheer for next year or any future cheerleading competitions or game cheer that we have. And finally, just anticipated budget needs. Again, just uniforms, just staying on a schedule. If you don't, and then you have to purchase a lot in one year, and then you may have some that just get torn apart and the wear and tear of them. You're going to be buying uniforms a lot in one year, and it becomes very, very expensive. Baseball, boys basketball, and football are next in line for uniforms. Pretty much all of our other programs have received new uniforms in the last 3 years. Materials and supplies. Purchasing was frozen this school year, so again, just filling the needs of materials and supplies, baseballs, softballs, things that baseballs and softballs go, pretty much they're good for one year or one foul ball. And then, just rotating other sports equipment through each year so that you're not purchasing a lot at one time. Another need is some track repair and some storage structure. Our track has some cracks that need to be addressed, whether in-house or by an outside vendor. And then an outdoor storage structure is needed. The track mats, hurdles, and other track equipment can deteriorate quickly if not stored properly. They're very expensive, so we need something to keep them, warm, I guess, during the winter. And if a structure is not possible, then an indoor solution is going to be necessary. And then just some equipment. Our weight room is important to the health, safety, and wellness of our athletes. Small equipment purchases can go a long way to improve our facility. Again, if you just pick up small little pieces here and there every year, it adds to our overall physical athlete. And again, you're not purchasing things all in one year or in bulk, which these things are very expensive. Questions?
I don't have a question, Jeff, but I just wanted to thank the parents, the coaches, again, the staff, the people that stepped up with no pay and took time away from their own families. It's a lot of dedication to do that. And what you've had to do also, you've gone above and beyond so our kids can play. And we all appreciate that.
Thank you.
I did want to ask, as far as the track mats, the hurdles and other things, what have we done historically for storing those? Is this a new problem or just a problem that we've realized over time?
This has been an ongoing issue. When I first took over, they were stored inside which is now part of our weight room. I don't know how healthy it is to store those things inside. I mean, they're out in the rain and the elements for most of the year. Until winter. We put them inside for 1 year. I just don't think it's a really good idea to store them inside a school building. We do have a storage shed attached to the school near the press box, but they do not. They don't all fit in that room. So we have our newest ones in there, and then the other ones we have kind of tucked up underneath an overhang near the concession stand on pallets. So they trying to keep them as safe as possible. But we do have some, at times we're kind of always going out and restacking them because, on a weekend, there may be kids, pulling them out and jumping on them or what have you.
But Jeff, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm sure you're as nervous as everyone else about fields and spring and now trying to condense all these activities. at a time when the fields are most, are least stable. My question is there been, do we have any, agreements with neighboring districts that have the turf? Because we know there'll be times that our fields just won't be usable. Has there been discussion, or is there any provision to get on the field of school, a neighboring school that has the turf?
So, the first thing that we've done for the fall 2 season is we've scheduled all the schools that have turf in our league. They're going to host the first 2 weeks of the season. So that will at least maybe get us to April for most schools. There's not enough schools with turf that can host everyone, but we think we've done a pretty good job of that. As far as renting other, we don't have an agreement yet. We are constantly talking about these athletic issues, and they're all new to everyone. We were looking at Aframs for our league to rent some time there to host some games if need be. So that's an option. And then we've always kind of had an agreement where some fields, whether they're turf or not, just drain better. And if we couldn't host a game here in Cohoes because of the fields, and another school's field was in good condition for that game, we would move the game there. And then the traveling team would pick up the vouchers for the officials. So we do kind of have some ideas to work those things out, but we do not have any agreements right now with other schools to like practice on their turf or play a game against someone else on another team's turf field.
I would also like to echo what Sue said, and I know the sentiment of the entire board, how grateful and appreciative we are of the coaches that are literally, and I know they feel that way sometimes anyway, but are really working for nothing now. And we can't thank enough.
Yeah.
We appreciate all that you've had to do to try to make this work.
Yeah, I don't think I can express my thanks to those coaches enough.
I don't really have any questions, which is unusual, as everybody knows, right? But I think that speaks to the thoroughness and this is for all 3 presentations, the thoroughness and thoughtfulness that you guys have put in to these secondary presentations for middle school, high school, and athletics. I think one of the things that I appreciated hearing was secondary in tandem as a theme. Like that's for us to hear, the cooperation and collaboration between 6-12 just kind of brings everything together for us to know that there is continuity there for kids. We have some really innovative thinkers in our leadership team and have great attitudes on focusing what's good for kids. And I think that's huge. And I just appreciate all 3 of you for your presentations tonight and want to thank you because your leadership trickles down to our staff, and that's quite obvious. We have a lot of challenges ahead of us. I think we all see that and we all know that. And, like Matt said, we're going to be put in a position where we're not going to be able to meet all of the needs or all of the challenges. But we appreciate the fact that you're bringing them all to our attention. I think Cohoes typically is an underdog community. We have a community that rallies, and our teachers, our staff, our students, our custodians, our parents, our coaches, and everybody has done that this year. And I think that just speaks to what Cohoes is all about. And so, I just wanted to thank Mr. Martinelli, Mrs. Tarlo, and Mr. for your presentations tonight. I think it was really great in focusing us back to what's important and what's good for kids. So thank you.
So, yes, thank you again, Mrs. Tarlo, Mr. Martinelli, Mr. Huno, and Mr. Hino, I hope you can still get in a couple minutes of the game that's going on, so.
If you see my eyes wandering a little bit, I have the nice thing about the system in there, I'm able to watch a little of it. We're up one.
And I'm gonna turn this over to Stacy Mackey now.
So I just have a really brief reminder regarding the presentation schedule and where we are in that process. So today, obviously, we concluded with the secondary schools and our athletic programs. The next time we meet, we'll talk about central office and BOE services. And we'll have a full picture of what the actual budget, what the proposed budget will be. April 14th is budget deliberations. And then the deadline for budget approval at the board level is April 23rd. So we do have a meeting scheduled for the 21st. So if we feel after the next time we meet on the 24th, if we need a special meeting, then we can plan for at the 24th meeting or time. We did have an update sent to us today from NISBA regarding this proposed stimulus package. The House of Representatives did pass what's called the American Rescue Plan today. The president is expected to act on this Friday. And according to Senator Schumer, New York State should receive like 12.5 billion for general funding for the state budget and the state's deficit. And K-12 schools should receive somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 billion, which is better than he had expected and included in the executive proposal. So that is good news. The law does require at least 20% of the K-12 funding to be used towards learning loss, and a lot of the needs that were discussed tonight would fit right in with that category, no problem. The allocations for districts and the timing and the use of the funds are expected to be formalized by state action and likely will be part of the 21-22 budget process at the state level. So unfortunately, I don't have any updates for you there, but at least we know we're moving in that direction. So that is good news. And this stimulus does build upon the CARES Act money that we applied for this year, haven't received yet. And the stimulus that was included in the executive proposal, it's called the CARES Act, that was approved in December. So this builds upon that. Any questions or?
There's still the unknown about the state was expecting a second stimulus sometime later this year. Is there a proposal, right? Is
That's us.
that is what is actually getting passed right now?
Hopefully.
Okay, cool. So there, all right, that's great.
We're still, second first name is the first with the state and their budget process. So the governor goes in, the Assembly of Senate comes in, and we still let that play itself out. The additional piece now, of course, is the federal stimulus.
Right.
But we don't know where we stand.
No, we do not. We're still at Korea and wait.
Any comments from board members on anything on the agenda for this evening? Okay. I just verified we don't have any community comments or questions. And so I will ask that for a motion for tonight's consent agenda.
Mrs. Giller?
Yes.
Mr. Pascal?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dion?
Yes.
Mrs. Carey?
Yes.
And Mr. Nolan?
Yes. With that, is there any other board discussion of any topic at all?
So if I could, I just wanted to mention something. Following up on what Margaret said and the presentation we saw with this very good feeling we have about communication, especially if you look at our secondary level and our middle school and high school. So I was invited, there's this, you may be familiar with this small church in the middle of Remsen Street. They have a program called City Life Program that they're working with the kids. So the pastor and her husband, Tim Moore, wonderful guy, young, very, very ambitious. Try and make a difference. Small, powerful, but small. So last night, they were going to talk about their City Life program with the kids and recognize some of their kids. Now, the number of kids they're going to recognize, I think it was 3, it wasn't 300. It was a small number, just a few kids. And I got to go up and when I get down and sure. So I get there, and who's sitting in the sparse audience, sitting next to each other, but Dan and Laura. So the two of them, like you can imagine what they're going through with all this stuff. And they knew it was going to be tiny. They knew they weren't going to go show their faces for big numbers. But there they were on a Tuesday night to get down there and be there for these three kids that were going to be recognized. And I said, I looked at the two of them, and then I heard tonight, and as hard and as difficult as all this is, I mean, we do, as Margaret said, we've got innovative, we've got some good people, but more than anything, I think we have very heartfelt people. When you hear them talk, it's not just a slick presentation. They care about at the risk of being corny, but they just care about the kids. And I think that's going to give us, it's going to get us all finished.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks. Great.
Without any other board or community comments, we have our next meeting on March 24th at 6 o'clock. And we'll have an update on our continued discussions around what our format will be. At this point, it'll probably still look like this, but we'll keep folks up to date if anything changes as we continue to have those discussions. And I will ask for a motion for the board to enter into executive session at 7:13 to discuss contract negotiations with the PTA and our superintendent position.
I'll make the motion. Second.
Mrs. Giller,
Yes.
Mr. Pascal,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mrs. Dion,
Yes.
Mrs. Carey,
Yes.
and Mr. Nolan.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great night.